Did Donald Trump just get broken over the Supreme Court's knee? Is he about to cry? What is happening? But Donald Trump knows what's happening. He's on a losing streak that's so bad that even Justice Kagan yesterday during oral argument noticed it. And that was before the new order came out 7-2 against Donald Trump and his use of the Alien Enemies Act at this particular moment by the Supreme Court. They knew they were going to rule against him during that oral argument. Yesterday during the oral argument, he was like, oh, it's so confusing. Why can't they just let me do what I want? Now he's issued a new social media post that basically starts, I mean, I'm telling you, the guy is losing it. He's about to shed tears over this, that the Supreme Court won't let him in the middle of the night remove and deport people and send them without due process to the dark gulags of foreign countries. I'm sorry that you are the president of the United States. I'm sorry that you didn't wake up in Cuba or North Korea or Russia. I know, run for when you leave here. In a rail or otherwise, why don't you go move to another country where you can be a fascist dictator that doesn't have our Constitution or our Supreme Court? You won't have to worry about it anymore. You know what I worry about? Only things that matter to MeidasTouch and Legal AF. I'm so glad you're here. Let's take a minute to talk about what happened. I already did a hot take about an hour ago, but now I got the new one about Donald Trump crying over it. Here's what happened. This is I don't know why this is a shock to Donald Trump. 4 weeks ago, the exact same 7-2 lineup of the Supreme Court, except for Alito and Thomas, all ruled against Donald Trump and said you can't send any more people to El Salvador in the middle of the night or any other time of day without due process and notice, and giving them 24 hours or 48 hours while we as a Supreme Court make an ultimate ruling about whether you have or have not properly exercised war powers is not fair. It's not constitutional. It's not due process. Pump the brakes. They issued that order at 1 o'clock in the morning 4 weeks ago. We said, isn't that interesting? Isn't that odd? The Supreme Court got their act together, and after 24 hours of an application being filed with it by the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, they ruled against Donald Trump. That wasn't the first ruling against Donald Trump in this area. He's now lost 4 times, including in the last 24 hours. He lost, and this is all in deportation and immigration and removal. He lost 9-0 in the Abrego Garcia case. And boy, is that Judge Zinn is hot about that. So hot, I got to do another hot take. So on Abrego Garcia, 9-0 on what we call this case, which is AARP, not that one, in Texas. He's lost twice, 7-2, and he lost another one we call JGG, 6-3. He's on a losing streak, an epic losing streak, and now he's about to cry over it. Get an effing grip. I have no respect for you, but I'd have a lot more respect for you if you'd stop whining. I'd say like a little girl, but I have a little girl, and I assure you, she does not whine this way, and she's not yet a year. Here's what Donald Trump, I got to just read it to you. Here's what Donald Trump posted. The Supreme Court has just ruled that the worst murderers, drug dealers, gang members, even those who are mentally insane, well, it takes one to know one, who came into our country illegally are not allowed to be forced out without going through a long, protracted, and expensive legal process capitalized, one that will take possibly many years for each person, and the one that will allow these people to commit many crimes before they even see the inside of a courthouse. All right, stop. Stop. The Supreme Court is not opening up the jailhouse doors and letting anybody out. Even Mr. Abrego Garcia, when he comes back to the United States, is not going to be having dinner with his family in Maryland. They stay in detention. They stay on the American side of this process in detention until they get before a federal judge by writ of habeas corpus to make a decision about their guilt or innocence, or whether they are or are not an enemy combatant under the Alien Enemies Act. So see this boogeyman, this phony, they're going to be out raping and committing crimes while they get due process? Wrong. They're not given bail. They're in detention, but they're just not in detention in El Salvador where we can't give them due process. So that's the first, what's the line? The first Pinocchio on Donald Trump. Long, protracted, and expensive legal process. Okay, we know from prior reporting that Donald Trump, during his 100-day interview tour, told various interviewers But he doesn't understand the due process. He doesn't understand the Fifth Amendment. He doesn't understand why he has to give any level of due process to anyone as the commander-in-chief and under his constitutional requirements under Article 2 of the Constitution. He just doesn't understand it. Yeah. Okay. And the other canard in here, the other falsehood, the other misstatement, the other, what's the word I'm searching for? Lie of Donald Trump to the American people is that these are all going to have to be individual cases. They're individual cases because Donald Trump keeps arguing with his Department of Justice that they can't be grouped together in a class action, grouping together all similarly situated people in one group. Every time the ACLU or one of the other public interest groups tries to bring this to one judge with one class action, Donald Trump's lawyers jump up and down and say, it's not a proper class. Every time he tries to get a nationwide injunction, they run to the Supreme Court and ask to have nationwide injunctions taken away as a remedy by a federal judge. That just went on an oral argument, just yesterday, just on Thursday. So Donald Trump speaks with forked tongue, I guess is the right way to say it. On one hand, he's arguing with the American people, criminals are going to be let out of the jail. They're all going to have individual trials for years. They're going to stay in detention. And if you would stop fighting class actions or nationwide injunctions, you wouldn't have to worry about this in individual cases. But they really want individual cases. This came up during the oral argument at the Supreme Court on Thursday. That's the point. They want to divide and conquer. They want hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of federal judges to have to make rulings. Maybe they get around to appealing it. Maybe they don't. Now that is at odds. And now it's interesting. This new ruling that just came out, and I'll read more from his bullshit social media post. This new ruling that just came out explains things that happened yesterday during the oral argument. Now it's all becoming clear. And Donald Trump doesn't get it. The Supreme Court wants the fundamental issue of whether his use of the Alien Enemies Act was right or wrong, constitutional or not, brought before them quickly. And they don't want to be pressured by having to worry about human beings being transported under cover of darkness without due process to El Salvador. And so they put an end to it, to the process. And they've ordered the trial courts to get the matter to them quickly so they can make an ultimate ruling as a Supreme Court, consistent with what they said yesterday during the oral argument. The result, back to Donald Trump, and he's about to cry. I think he's really about to cry here. I think that's why he does it in social media posts, and he doesn't actually take to the airwaves, because I think he would cry, and his handlers probably are worried about it. The result of this decision will let more criminals pour into our country, doing great harm to our cherished American public. I don't understand. I mean, if ICE has the ability to pick up somebody for true violations of our immigration law, then they get him before an immigration judge and give them notice. Or if they're going to use the Alien Enemies Act, then the writ of habeas corpus gets them before an Article 3 judge. Either way, they get some level of due process. But I don't think anything Donald Trump now that he's doing is incentivizing more illegal immigrants. I don't think any undocumented are going, now is a perfect time for us to enter the United States. We've been waiting. The coast is clear. Let's sneak in. No, who's saying that? Nobody. It will also encourage other criminals to illegally enter our country, wreaking havoc and bedlam wherever they go. I mean, this is just back in the 1920s and 1930s, they had documentaries that were made about the perils and the harm of smoking marijuana. Mary Jane. It was, reefer madness. They used to show it in college when I was in town. It'd be like somebody smoked a joint and then they went crazy and raped the town and murdered people. Yeah, but that wasn't true. That was propaganda. And this is nothing except for Trumpian propaganda at the highest level. The North Koreans and the Russians are like, wow, he just out-propaganded us. The Supreme Court of the United States is not allowing me to do what I was elected to do. He thinks because he beat Kamala Harris that he gets to put our Constitution in a cage and lock it away and not abide by it. But I got 7 battleground states. Okay. It doesn't matter. I don't care, because Donald Trump doesn't understand history. Ronald Reagan won every state in the country electorally, except for Minnesota against Walter Mondale. I mean, this is not exaggerating. He won 49 out of 50 states, 500 plus electoral votes. Now that's a mandate, and that's a landslide. And even Ronald Reagan didn't believe that he had just been elected the Fuhrer or Mussolini or Il Duce. They knew he was still the president of a United States of America in a constitutional republic, but not this president, not this crying, whining, weak, deflated president. So sleepy Joe Biden. Oh, here we go. I mean, it's beyond a broken record. This horse is dead and buried, and there's been a cremation. Why are we still beating it? Sleepy Joe Biden allowed millions of criminal aliens to come into our country without process. No, that's not true. They went through an immigration process. They were given temporary protective status. They were given some sort of immigration status. But in order to get them out, we have to give them extended process. In any event, thank you to Justice Alito and Justice Thomas for attempting to protect our country. This is a bad and dangerous day for America. The weather, it's heating up, and your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather. So you get better sleep every night. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Upgrade your sleep as the weather heats up. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo LegalAF at checkout, you'll get a free 3-piece towel set and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/legalAF and use the code LegalAF to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/legalAF to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. So here's the reality. The Supreme Court finally stood up for itself and has consistently done so in the last 4 decisions against Donald Trump. He's on an epic losing streak at the Supreme Court. It does not mean history is not prologue. It does not mean that he's going to continue to lose on other things, including the case from 2 days ago about birthright citizenship and the use of nationwide injunctions by federal judges. But it does mean that when Donald Trump doesn't just push the envelope, burns down the whole stationery store, that they're going to stop him from his worst excesses. Here's what the 7 out of the 9 could agree on. I'll give you the rundown that Donald Trump finds offensive. That people who are accused of crimes or being terrorist combatants under the Alien Enemies Act or are put in detention and captured and arrested administratively or otherwise by the United States are entitled to levels of due process. If they are being sent out on immigration law, then you get before a immigration law judge, administrative law judge, who's an immigration judge, with due process, notice, properly Spanish translators, and a lawyer on the other side. If you're being sent away on Alien Enemies Act, then the court has already ruled in the last 2 months that you have to do it through a writ of habeas corpus. Didn't say anything about class actions. It could be done by class actions. A federal judge then sits in judgment. You got the evidence. You want to prove these people are bad people or rapists, terrorists, and mentally, criminally insane. You bring it to the judge. I'm not sure criminally insane is part of it. And then they make the decision. But they all agree, 7 out of 9, that Donald Trump has to be stopped from deporting and removing people, expelling people to a foreign country away from the jurisdiction of federal courts to do their work to protect and defend the habeas corpus and due process rights of these individuals, period. And that is a consensus, 7-2. The only 2 out there, Alito and Thomas, are like, Well, there's a jurisdictional issue here. I'm not sure it's time or ripe. We should have let this percolate some more down at the lower courts. Who cares if human beings are sent off to El Salvador? Who cares if once they're there, Donald Trump says he can't get them back and they were kind. They could have wrote in the order they didn't like the fact that Donald Trump tormented and trolled the Supreme Court and said, you're never getting Abrego Garcia back with the New York Times article graffitied on there. But, I guess the boiled down of this hot take is Donald Trump believes that when he posts these social media posts and is about to cry, that it moves the needle somehow with the American public. And I think it doesn't. I think this button he keeps pushing isn't connected to anything. It's like the elevator that you're trying to make come down faster. It's just not connected to anything because the American people have sort of cut the cord with Donald Trump and we're helping them. You're here on the MeidasTouch Network. So many great things because of you. MeidasTouch podcast, number 1 and number 5, depending upon the poll you look at. They won the Webby. Legal AF ended up in the top 100, number 64 in all podcasts in the world in the brand new YouTube rankings. Popok's Intersection podcast, which is on Legal AF, the YouTube channel, that ended up top 100 in the country, in the world, as well as a podcast. All because of you. Take a moment, hit subscribe here on MeidasTouch, Legal AF, the YouTube channel, Legal AF MTN, hit the subscribe button, and the Substack for Legal AF is a poppin'. And we posted, for instance, this particular written opinion by the Supreme Court that I've been talking about at length now for 14 minutes. Find it on Legal AF, the Substack. Till my next reporting, I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.